Okay, hello, and welcome to the latest episode of Getting There, eSchool News conversation with school district leaders on how they're responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. My name is Kevin Hogan. I'm editor at large, and I'm happy you found us today. And very happy to welcome Laura Lockhart. Laura, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for
Great.
having me.
Well, thanks for coming on. I know you're probably not too busy, right? I mean, during the middle of a pandemic, you've got plenty of stuff you could be doing other than talking to me, so I really appreciate it. But I think the topic that we want to talk about is really important, especially within the context of the pandemic. But maybe we could start off, can you talk a little bit about Keller Independent School District in Texas, right? Give us a bit of a context of where you are, how many students, are you hybrid, are you remote, are you in person? Kind of just give us the state of Keller right now.
Oh, absolutely. Happy to do that. So Keller ISD is nestled a little north of Fort Worth in the DFW area. We have about going on about 37,000 students now. We will probably max out at about 40,000, give or take. And so we are about built out now, but it has been a wild ride up until now, trying to get everything prepared for our kids. So then 2020, of course, happened. And we are currently in person. However, we have given the choice to our families to be remote. So we have, in the state of Texas, every 9 weeks or every grading period, parents can choose if they want to be remote or in person. So we have a first day of school now 4 times a year. And that just happened yesterday, where we had a new group of students coming in and a group going out. Just kind of depending on personal preference and what's working and not working for the family. So we have probably about, I'm going to guess, but probably about 60% of our students in person and the rest are remote. We do have some hybrid courses in our CTE career technology building, where they'll come in for those courses that really are hands-on and very hard to do remote, but they'll do the rest of their core courses online. So so that's kind of what our hybrid looks like right now. And then our nurses and administrators unfortunately chase around COVID and contact tracing and quarantining. We probably have about 1,000 students on quarantine right now. So it's just, it's 2020 and we're not able to do what we normally do, but we're trying to make sure everybody stays safe. We have a pretty, students are in masks. We have desk shields. When we do the contact tracing, it's very, we're pretty conservative about it, as far as making sure that if there's 15 minutes of contact, then they're quarantined. So anyway, so that's kind of the state of Keller right now. Like everybody else, we're just trying to figure it out every day.
Yeah. Every day is another day in paradise, right? So in a normal world, we would be talking about National Bullying Prevention Month, which is here in October. And in my coverage of ed tech, cyberbullying, cybersecurity, the security of students was always number one before COVID. So now we have COVID number one, and that being number two. But have you seen that issue of bullying, now that we've entered these new dynamics, is that something that's still present? Is that something that is still is front and center, or has that changed somehow because of the pandemic?
It has shifted. And I would say the pandemic is one part of that, but the social justice issues are another big, humongous part of that. Our economic downturn is another part of that. So it is a very challenging time for everybody, not just public schools, as we're grappling with who we are and what we've done and how we can be a better society right now. So in regards to some of our remote situations, we've had to adjust to littles and bigs, figuring out how to manage Zoom. We have issues where some families or some students are not comfortable showing, their homes on Zoom. We have situations where there's maybe background noise that's not something that we want to share with the world. And then we have issues where, other students are responding to that. And so cyberbullying seems to be something that we're having to deal with just a little bit more, but it's very different than it was. We ran around dealing with social media posts quite a bit before, and now it's more of like what's on the chat and private messages and things that are said in breakout rooms and those sorts of things. So that's kind of the remote cyberbullying type issues that we're dealing with. But then we're also dealing with things at the campus level that are in alignment with, the harassment and people being much more sensitive to social justice issues.
Yeah. Well, I like to kind of divide the timer into three parts. There's the BP before pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
We're now waist deep in the during the pandemic, and then hopefully we can talk about the after the pandemic a little bit. But maybe we could start with the before the pandemic and the way that you were using Laserfish, I think specifically in terms of automating the processes to kind of monitor and manage student behavior.
Yeah, so I'll just go back a little bit, probably about 8 years ago. We were actually cited by the Office of Civil Rights. We had a complaint that we did not handle a bullying situation or outcry effectively. And so because of that, we created a focus group task force to really dig into what we were missing in regards to managing and responding to outcries. And so there's really a specific process that we should have been using and we had not. So this team worked on an investigation process, and at first it was on some of our internal tools and systems, a little clunky as far as getting it all filled out and everything, but it did help an investigator or an administrator go through the whole process without missing a step. And then, but there's also things that are part of this process that are time sensitive. So within 3 days, parents of each of the perpetrator and the victim have to be notified in 3 days. An investigation has to be complete in 10 days. All allegations must be investigated. So those time stamps and frames and things like that, that's where Laserfish really helped us out. We took the whole investigation system and put it on the Laserfish process. And I say we, it was our technology department and Clint Mehta, who was the mastermind and the brains behind all of that. He would sit and, his expertise was technology. Our expertise was the process. And so he would ask questions and ask questions and ask questions until we got it right. And we would ask for, different things that we wanted to have happen. And he would work through that. So we continue to improve it as well. But what happened is that an allegation will come in, maybe an allegation from the outside, like it's on our website, and it's a Laserfish form. It comes in, it pops up in all of our inbox, so we know that there's an allegation that has been made. The principal reviews it, assigns it to one of the assistant principals. The assistant principal opens it up, it pre-populates into an investigation, and then they can start working their process. If an allegation has not been touched for 5 days, we get an alert. Because they'll only have 5 more days to finish that investigation. If a investigation has not been complete, we'll get an alert. So it really helps us stay on track, as well as working through all the the specifics of an investigation, because there's a lot of pieces in the state of Texas to make sure that we're covering. we're looking into. So that's kind of what took us up to our process and how we're using Laserfish. And then, we monitor it from the district level. We provide feedback. It's pretty steady. Especially, I think one of the differences pre-pandemic and now is with less children in the school, there is a little less opportunities, but they figure out their way. So it hasn't eliminated it, but it has. There's less discipline. There's a lot of less things. I'm not sure about the learning. I'm a little concerned about remote learning right now with all of our kids. Yeah. But it's pretty steady, and we cover everything from harassment issues on all the protected classes and also bullying. So. And like I said earlier, right now it's more cyberbullying, social justice issues, and that's the kind of data that we're collecting from it. That's another thing that the Laserfish process gives us is a dashboard of data to analyze where things are coming from.
Okay. Now, during a normal year, how often would you have a report? I mean, is this something that's a common occurrence, like weekly or monthly, or is it something that was more extraordinary?
Oh no, we'll get with a district of 36,000 students, we'll get several reports a week.
Oh, okay. All right. Wow. And each of those need to be documented, timestamps, and so that's where that automated process keeps you from being overwhelmed, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's so much that has to go into it that and kept up with, that the form helps organize everything, and then this timestamps helps us stay on track, because we get many.
Yeah. And so you're saying though that's now that we're during the pandemic, it's been fewer or different?
It's been a little fewer and then a lot different.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. And so that comes in terms of I guess Zoom calls, or what sort of platform we're using for hybrid and remote instruction?
So for the synchronous instruction, it would be Zoom. And then we use learning management platforms of Google Classroom and Canvas and Seesaw, depending on the school and the teacher. Each of the students, they'll go on their technology page and they have a little backpack icon, and within that backpack icon is their learning management systems that they have to have access to. So so for the asynchronous students, they work mainly out of that. We also have virtual learning through the state of Texas and some other different types of learning platforms, but that's mostly is the Zooms and the learning platforms is how they're getting their remote instruction.
Okay. In talking with other districts, I've begun to notice a pattern, a weird, almost kind of inverse situation where in many instances, the use of Zoom when it comes to behavior issues or when it comes to speaking to a counselor or other kind of special education needs has actually kind of improved communication in a way. That some of the dynamic where you're being sent to the principal's office or you're being sent to the guidance counselor office, or if there's a behavior situation, that the Zoom kind of, I don't know, neutralizes it a little bit. Have you found that to be a case in Keller, or is that something that is unusual? Talk a little bit about how the dynamics of managing student behavior has changed because of this.
Well, when you can mute somebody, that does help. We know. Yeah. And maybe put someone in the waiting room.
Yeah.
The issue is, sure. I mean, I've even seen the benefits of meetings and getting people together quickly, and it being a little bit more crazy, but kind of personalized, just because there's a little less distraction, as far as what we're there to do. Right. and even the counseling groups and things like that, I can see that there's some intimacy that is surprising. Didn't quite expect that. However, our students that struggle, either academically, emotionally, or their home lives are a struggle, it's not a safe environment for them. Okay. If they have the support at home, to be fed, to be, a calm environment, those sorts of things, which we do. We're lucky in Keller. We have a lot that do have those benefits, and it is working very well. But if they don't have that environmental support at home, it's not effective. They're getting behind academically. They're getting behind socially, emotionally. Those are the kids. And again, we don't have a lot, but I'm in student services, and that's kind of my work. That's my filter, are the students that are struggling. Yeah. And so you might want to ask another department about the students that are it's going really, really well. But my filter is the students that are struggling. And that part is the part that I worry about. Again, few and far between, but one is too many. So those are the things that we're working on.
Yeah. How about let's talk a little bit about after the pandemic. How many of these techniques, and specifically when it comes to managing bullying, and there's other sort of processes that have changed because of the pandemic, do you think are going to stick? Or are there any that are going to stick, or will we go back to the way it was before the pandemic when it comes to using these tools?
I think we can all agree we're never going to be the same.
Yeah.
There are some real gifts as far as launching us forward in a really accelerated way that probably would have taken us 10 years to get to if we'd just done it, rocking along like we always have done. So there are some things that will be better and more efficient and more inclusive because of the technology advances that we're needing to make. Post pandemic, I'm hoping, in 21-22, we can sort of get back to a normal school year. It's funny how that timeline continues to shift based on in March. We're like, oh, we'll be off 2 weeks and then we'll, get back to normal. Right. And then it just continues we just can kick it down the road. So what I'm saying now is hopefully in 21-22, we'll get a little bit more sense of normalcy. I foresee bringing all of our population back together, that there will be some climate and culture issues that we're going to need to make sure that we're not only proactive about, but we're also responding appropriately so our kids are safe. And so the response part of that is the bullying and harassment investigation process. We want to make sure that piece is very solid and thorough, but we also want to give equal time to proactive, productive, positive relationship building. So that's kind of where I see, hopefully we'll be working in 21-22.
Right. How about culturally, and how we've all been forced to begin to use these technologies, especially devices, where before students, I used to think about it as like from 2007, we were all born digital natives, both adults as well as students, right? And we're now in the teenage years and we're still figuring out, obviously, adults as well as students trying to figure out how to use these things appropriately and for their greatest advantage. Another trend that I've picked up a little bit on is, a greater amount of empathy when it comes to teachers talking to students, students talking to teachers, students talking to each other in a lot of senses. I'm guessing that's something you'd also be hopeful for, to see that maybe will now mature a little bit through the use and this forced use of this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously the technology has enhanced just our access to learning, our access to one another, and those are things that I think will continue to help us out. And like I said, we were forced to learn a lot of things very quickly. The kids were forced to learn a lot of things very quickly, but I do truly do. I do feel like there will be, uh, just because there's different, we've expanded our ways to connect. And I think that was something that unfortunately had to be forced upon us. And so, but it has been a really, it's been a gift in a lot of ways where, like again, student services filter, that's where I work from, but I'm able to gather a group of people from across the district to brainstorm about problem solving about a student very quickly now. Nobody has to travel. We're able to pull in parents. All of those things are increasing our ability to connect. And I'm hopeful that, as we help with systems like the Laserfish system and other online systems that help us free up time, so that we're not second guessing ourselves on our processes, and that we're making sure that we're meeting our deadlines. That gives us more time to connect, where it actually matters with the people. And so I'm hopeful. I do see some improvements in regards to that.
Yes, and one final question: would you have any piece of advice for a district maybe who hasn't automated their processes the way that you have? Like, what would be the first steps, even as you are dealing with all these other things? This is something that you feel would be important to continue to begin to implement?
So that collaboration and shared leadership with experts, it was critical in our work. So we had people at the table who were working, practicing, campus administrators. We had district leaders with policy knowledge and expertise, and then the technology department with their level of expertise. And then we were not scared to learn from one another. Everybody was very open to understanding, what systems could and couldn't do. And then, like I said, Clint was, he learned and made sure that he understood the investigation process very deeply so that he could create a system that met our needs. So that collaboration, it takes time, but it's more than I just want the system to do this. Can you make it happen? It's a constant communication and collaboration and an understanding of everyone's role to share that in that process of making it happen. So, we were very lucky to have a lot of committed people that were very knowledgeable and very open to learning from one another. And that helped us get to where we are today with the Laserfish process.
Great. And so maybe that'll be easier now that you can do that on Zoom if you're not in the same.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. And we've already started, with the share. It's amazing. It's amazing. And the time saved from going across the district to sit down with somebody. Now, I do spend a lot of time in this office that I probably would like to get out a little bit more, but we are efficiently getting through things. So that has been definitely a positive.
That's great. Well, Laura, thank you so much for your time. Your work is very important. And I always have to tip my hat to the educators right now through this time. But your insights will definitely be helping our readership, who are folks just like you. So thanks again for your time.
Awesome. It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And thanks everybody for watching and reading eSchool News. I'm Kevin Hogan.